everyone, I've had a baby. This is my baby. This feels like quite a daunting video to make because our birth was so long and so much went on. When I was pregnant, I watched and read lots and lots of people's birth experiences. Until I was pregnant, I didn't realise how useful that was. Our story has some ups and downs, some emotional bits, but before you click away, I would say don't just read people's experiences where everything goes perfectly, because it doesn't have to go perfectly to be a good experience, and I hope our story is an example of that. I still feel really positively and good about our story, and even more proud of us all in a way, because it wasn't straightforward. So I planned a home water birth, and we had the gas and air and everything. It had been a whole up and down emotional roller coaster with that, because due to coronavirus and the lockdown and everything, the home birth service was suspended in our area temporarily. My father-in-law caught coronavirus on a hospital ward, so the thought of going into a hospital to give birth was like this massive hurdle. As it turns out, I spent a week in hospital and I honestly wasn't even thinking about coronavirus during that time. When I came back out, I kind of had a moment of like, oh yeah, this is going on as well. And then the home birth service was reinstated and I got all excited, and I had like this little setup arranged, this little beautiful setup with these lights. My theme from the beginning, I had a birth theme and it was based around this spa that me and Alex went to on our honeymoon, and it was all like dim purple lights, and I love spas and like relaxing spa music and things, so I had these purple fairy lights, these really good battery operated candles which flickered and looked really realistic. I got battery operated just because, you know, I didn't want to have to keep an eye on a candle, or Alex to have to keep an eye on candles the whole time during labour, and if we went into hospital we could use the battery ones. So everything was all groovy for the home birth, except then baby decided she didn't want to come. She wasn't interested in being born. She was quite happy where she was. Years before I was pregnant, I'd been learning about pregnancy and birth, and side note by the way, I wish I'd spent more of that time learning about the postpartum period. I thought I did. I was like, yeah, I've done preparation for that. No, it makes me laugh looking back now, the amount of time I spent preparing for birth, which was a relatively quick experience. Then, you know, then you've got a baby. I knew about induction and I knew it was something I wanted to avoid, but I didn't do that much research, and it's not so much research, I didn't think about it that much. I didn't put that much thought into my preferences with induction as much as I did other things. I just really had this feeling she was going to be early, and she wasn't. So I had 2 sweeps and they were unsuccessful. I was a bit scared of induction, and I also just had this feeling that like the day I get induced, if I hadn't have been induced the next day, I bet I would have gone into labour naturally. And I felt pressure from different angles to like decide different things. When I was 42 weeks, I went into the hospital, spoke about induction options. I was in there on my own, and I had to cry quite a few times because I was stressed out. The midwife was really lovely. She gave me lots of information. She printed out a lot of things for me to sit and read, and said take as much time as you want, and remember, you know, you can go at any time that you want. You burpee? You do a little burpee? Oh, you look so tiny. You look so tiny. She's just over 1 month now, by the way, as I film this. Oh, do a little yawn. You're so cute. Oh. Mwah. Say hi everyone, I'm really cute. I was really nervous to make any decision because I knew I can't go back. By the way, leading up to this, I had tried every old wives' tale to get labour going that you can imagine, and nothing had happened. On the Wednesday when I was 42 weeks, we started with like the most natural method of induction we could try, and I went home that night, we watched Harry Potter, Alex gave me a massage, and we just tried to relax. I did feel some things happening, but nothing much in particular. We went back in the next day and they checked me and nothing had happened. Yeah, then we started on the hormonal methods of induction. I had the, is it the pessary? I've heard it called like all different names while I was there. hormone tablet. Alex had to leave and I had to go to a ward. Saying goodbye to him was really emotional. We had so many emotional reunions and then saying goodbye and then reunions and then saying goodbye through this whole thing. He was only allowed to be with me when they were going to break my waters and when I was in established labour. So I went to this ward and I was going to be staying there overnight, and there were a few other people on the ward, but in my room there was no one else. Some people came and went, but they weren't there for long.
You got big and like bags out.
Thank you. I felt what I thought were contractions and I was crossing my fingers that like this was it and my body was going to go into labour and then I'd be able to use the birth pool. On the labour ward I was still really hoping for a water birth, but I wouldn't be able to have the water birth if I ended up on the drip. It was really hot on the ward and I had with me some of the paper fans from our wedding, and as things got more and more intense I asked for a birth ball. It was really hard to explain, I feel like, until you're in labour, but you just find something that feels relieving for your body, like a movement. It might just be like doing that, or it's just some little thing and it just feels good and works for you. So I ended up in the same position on this birth ball doing the same thing for hours, and I had headphones in and I was listening to hypnobirthing, and every time a surge would build I would fan the back of my neck and just sort of rock and count, and this same motion just really helped. And it was completely manageable at this point, you know, it was fine, and I was excited that things were getting going. And also walking helped, so I would walk up and down the empty ward listening to my hypnobirthing. We thought I was being examined at 2 in the morning. That's when they would likely break my waters. Alex arrived at 2 in the morning. We don't have a car, bear in mind, so he got taken there and then left there at 2 in the morning and they wouldn't let him in. Apparently it was 7 in the morning that they were actually gonna do something, so he was told he couldn't wait in the hospital because of COVID, so bless him, he tried to sleep on a bench outside, but it didn't go very well, did it?
No.
In the morning I think I was getting quite emotional. From what I can remember, I was pretty emotional the whole time, but I think I'd started crying and sort of saying I miss my husband and stuff, and they said, well, we're gonna take you over to the labour suite now so he can come with you while we wait to see if we can break your waters. I said to the lady who was walking me over, I was like, I'm gonna cry really badly when I see him, just so you know. They broke my waters. The waters being broken was not pleasant at all. It was the first time I used gas and air. They gave me some gas and air. It may have been worse for me because I had not dilated much at all. It was very unpleasant, but it was also over very quick. I was at this point though very sick of my cervix being poked about. Did I go on the drip straight away after they broke my waters?
Pretty quickly after that.
Because that was the plan, right? Because nothing had really got going. The contractions had stopped, by the way, at this point. They'd stopped in the early hours of the morning, hadn't they? The drip was actually fine for a really long time. It was great. It got labour going and it felt really manageable. The midwives were really lovely. We saw quite a few midwives come and go as they were changing shifts. They were all really nice. We enjoyed just sitting chatting to them. And the surges were, I keep going back and forth between saying contractions and surges, but you know what I mean. We're back on other booby. The surges were fine and really manageable. I was so interested to know what contractions or surges felt like, because I know they were described as like a wave. It really helped me to visualize a mountain and to count. So I'd count like to the peak and coming down. They weren't that bad. Like for a really long time it was completely fine, completely manageable. When you hear like, oh, someone was in labour for 20 hours or whatnot, not all of that is at the peak of intensity. You get breaks in between each surge obviously, and for a long time they're not really intense. So I was really enjoying it. Again, I found being on a birth ball like the most comfortable thing for most of the entire process. Process or process?
It depends where you're from.
Where am I from?
I say process.
Process. Alex was stroking me and chatting with me and fetching things for me if I wanted a drink or whatnot, and the staff brought us a Bluetooth speaker and we hooked it up and we put on hypnobirthing and like spa music and things. There was just this one hypnobirthing track. I'll link down below a full playlist of the tracks I used. I also used the Freya app though. While I was in early labour, I was mostly listening to this one hypnobirthing bit of audio like on repeat. I feel like hours just flew by and everything was going great, bopping around on the birth ball, feeling very chilled. Then I just remember suddenly like everything changed. So with the drip, they're trying to manage giving you contractions that are long enough to get you where you need to be, but not just giving you like back-to-back contractions. Does that make sense? Am I explaining it badly? As we were getting further and further along and they're sort of turning the drip up a little bit and things are getting more intense, I feel like there was a point at which they suddenly were going, oh, should we turn it up, should we turn it down, should we turn it up, should we turn it down? And it started to get very intense and the patterns weren't necessarily as predictable as they'd been before, and I started to just sort of lose my focus a little bit. And baby turned back to back. We didn't know that she'd turn back to back until a little while later, but I think it was around the same time as that, because I remember just pain in my back and like this lower pain that I hadn't felt before. And that was the point at which I was leaning over the back of the bed making that noise. So I discovered a noise that really helped me when I was at the peak of the surge and coming down. I would go, is it that?
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, it helped. You find the strange things help you and you just gotta go with it. I was struggling to use my techniques and to like focus. I think I was really knackered, so I used my brain. Did I just straight up away ask the doctors for an epidural, or did I talk to you about it first? I don't remember.
You said to me, I think I want one.
Yeah.
And obviously before, like way before, like you even went into labour or anything like that, we'd had the discussion.
Well, we'd had the discussion of like, I don't want an epidural. My plan isn't to get an epidural, and I would like to avoid one. I also would like a home water birth, but there you go, you just adapt, don't you? You adapt to your situation. And I'd said to Alex, you know, if you think I'm just at a difficult point, or like I'm coming up to transition, or I'm just having a little moment and I ask for an epidural, just try and like coach me through that first, because maybe I don't really, maybe I'm just, you know, saying stuff. Like I asked him to kill me at one point. I didn't mean it. But you just say stuff sometimes. But I'd also said to you, you know, there might be a point where I say I want an epidural and I actually mean it, and I just sort of use your judgment and we'll both try and be aware together of like the difference.
Yeah.
Like, would this actually be useful? Well, that's what the brain thing is for, isn't it? The brain like framework is to ask these questions and think about the benefits and the risks and all that. One of the other least enjoyable parts for me is having the epidural like put in, applied, I don't know how you describe it, but having to sit still for that. I managed it, but that was very unpleasant. That was great because I wasn't completely numbed out, but I was able to rest. We set up my purple fairy lights, and we had like spa music on, and we set up the battery candles and turned the lights down, and I had my first little nap, and you had a little nap in a chair, didn't you? And that was so nice being able to rest. I think it was after we woke up from this nap that things got a little bit scary, because I had spiked a temperature of, I think it was 40. Was it 40?
It was something, yeah, it was high. It was
yeah,
scarily high.
And they have to treat it as suspected coronavirus for a start, but they were worried about sepsis. I have really vague memories of all this because I was so tired, and I had just been having a nap, and I'm kind of going in and out of a nap while doctors and stuff are talking to me. And because of the temperature, did they hook me up to another IV thing?
Yeah.
I took my second proper nap. I snuggled down and got some rest in. I was really unaware throughout all of this of the time. especially because from when we first went in this room, we'd shut the blinds and we tried to keep the lighting dim and sort of calm, so I had no sense of what time of day it was or what day it was even. But at this point now, taking my second nap, I haven't had the epidural and had all the craziness of temperature and sepsis and coronavirus. This was now the early hours of Saturday the 30th, baby's birthday. I woke up from my nap, I had an examination, and they told me I was 10 centimeters dilated, and I remember being like, what? And just hearing that gave me such a boost. I'd completely tuned out from listening to the Bluetooth speaker. I feel really bad for everyone else because I think I had this same playlist or this same hypnobirthing track or something on repeat for hours, and none of them probably liked to say anything. Like, this is getting a bit annoying because, you know, I'm the one having a baby, and if I want that on repeat, then they'll let me have it on repeat. But I hadn't even been paying attention to it for a long time. Everyone else had just been having to listen to this playlist again and again, bless them. And one of the midwives said, shall we change the music to something more upbeat? And that reminded me that I had made a second playlist, an upbeat birth playlist. I had a playlist called Birth Spa and a playlist called Birth Bops. So we changed it over to Birth Bops, which is mostly Dolly Parton, and I got in position to push. I was laying on my back, which is the position I have always wanted to avoid giving birth in, just because I read that it's the least sort of helpful, but I was in that position because of the epidural, and I just felt comfortable. I felt good in that position. It was really nice and relaxing. I loved pushing. The pushing part I want to do again. Right now I do it every day. It was just so cool. It was so fun. I really want to do it again. I think I also got very excited because this was the first point during the birth where I really felt like I could do something and I could feel an instant result, whereas, you know, the entire 19 hours previous that I was in labour, I was just sort of wondering if I was dilating and hoping that these things were going to work, and I was in control, but I also felt quite powerless at the same time. And pushing, I was like, right, it's my time to shine. I could do something, and it was just great. They at one point put up the like stirrup things either side of the bed so I could put my legs up, and that helped so much. I had my legs up on these things, and then I was like holding onto the bars either side of the bed. I think I was very controlled. I think I was quite good at the pushing bit. Something that really helped was the midwife at one point offered to just put her finger in a spot where I should focus the pressure down on, and I said yeah, I'd like her to do that, and it was really helpful. It just gave me like a focus point, a mental and physical sort of focus point. I found it helpful. I think I have to do it again at one point, and I was really just focused on the rhythm of like using the gas and air, then counting, getting 3 big pushes in, and then using the time in between contractions to rest. And it was really strange because at this point, suddenly, just like that, it's not the same kind of intensity. In between the pushes where I would focus, we were chatting and joking and laughing, and I remember talking a lot about how it felt like I was doing the biggest poo of my life. Yeah, I pushed for an hour. Alex was stood at the bottom of the bed. Can I get a comment on you standing at the end of the bed watching all the action? How was it?
Well, I mean, it was pretty amazing. I wasn't gonna initially, but I'm glad I did because it was incredible.
He said when she came out she looked like Thanos because she's purple.
Yeah, but it was beautiful in a sort of gory way.
I was really happy that Alex was down that end watching as well, because it really motivated me watching his face and seeing the awe on his face and how excited he was. Just before she came out, Alex came up from my end so he could sort of be with me when they lifted her up. She was born at 3:29 AM on Saturday, May 30th, weighing 9.5 pounds, while Dolly Parton was playing in the background, which I didn't realise for a few days afterwards until someone pointed out that Dolly Parton was playing and she weighed 9.5 pounds. So that's kind of a cool, strange Dolly Parton coincidence thing that happened. She's a Dolly Parton baby. It was just the most amazing, surreal moment, her being put on my chest, seeing her little face for the first time, hearing her cry. That's the only time that hearing her cry has made me happy. I had a mild graze and Alex was holding her while they were sorting me out. I don't remember when they told me, and I don't remember properly taking in the fact that I was going to have to stay in hospital without Alex. I think I was on such a high, and I'd been in such like I'd been in the zone so much that I hadn't really thought about that or processed it. And I just remember having this lovely couple of hours with Alex, with baby, and then all of a sudden it was just me and baby in hospital, and we were taken round to a ward after my coronavirus test came back negative. Taken around to a ward, and there were 3 other people on the ward, and I don't remember the first half of that day, to be honest. I just remember sort of coming down from this birth high, alone in this bay in the hospital, and starting to sort of freak out a bit and starting to feel quite anxious. And I pulled the curtain round on my bay and I kept it closed the whole time I was there, because I felt really uncomfortable being around the other people, which I know is daft, but you know, I struggle with anxiety as it is, and I was just in such a crazy headspace at that time, and I didn't want people seeing me struggling and learning to take care of my baby. I just felt really strange, and I mean, more than anything, I wanted to be at home with my husband. We'd already had to come to terms with the fact that we wouldn't have our family with us, but now it was just me. I didn't even have Alex, and there were staff on the ward, but I felt really shy about asking them for things and talking to them. I know that I didn't drink enough, and they were concerned, and they told me I need to drink. I was just in a weird place, and at first it wasn't necessarily a bad place, it was just a weird place. I just didn't really know what I was doing, and I didn't know how to feel about any of this, and I didn't know how serious it was, what we were even in there for, and when we were going home. And I also began swelling up my legs and my feet. You have like all the regular excess fluid and stuff from pregnancy, but I'd also had a bunch of other stuff because of the sepsis scare. Oh yeah, I didn't remember also taking in that as soon as baby was born, they put a cannula in baby's arms. I was really nervous every time I dressed her with that in her arm. I didn't want to hurt her, and I was hooked up to an IV. I didn't ask for help enough. I know that looking back now, and I think if I had started off asking for all the help I needed, maybe I wouldn't have got as bad as I did. And I did get to a really bad point. I won't go into all of it, but maybe the lowest point for me was, it was about 4 in the morning. I couldn't get her to sleep. This is my first time looking after a baby. The last time I spent any time with a baby was with my brother when I was 11. And I buzzed and called for one of the midwives, and I was sobbing on my bed and she was crying, and I said to him, I can't take care of her. Something I forgot to say while my camera was set up and I was recording a minute ago. A really nice sort of full circle moment for me, which kind of gave me some closure on the struggle I had in hospital, was I had a dream not long ago where I was in the hospital and I suddenly realised I'd been taking care of this baby and she wasn't mine. They were trying to get me to give her to someone else, and I was protesting, I was upset, and I was saying I'm the only one that can take care of her, and I really like meant it, and I was really scared. I thought, oh my god, no one else knows her little ways the way that I do, like no one's gonna be able to do it like I can. And I woke up still feeling that, and I woke up just like, oh, that was really nice, because the lowest moment for me was when I said I can't take care of her, and I really felt like I shouldn't take care of her and that I was bad for her. And then I just sort of accepted and had a moment where I realised, yeah, I might have felt like that at one point, but it didn't last, and now I do feel like the best person to take care of her, which is what the midwives told me at the time, but I didn't believe them yet, but I do now. That's the end of that little dream side story. So I gave birth on the Saturday, and on Sunday they were going to tell us if we could go or not based off the results. The doctor came round and said they think it's group strep B, which I had never heard of, and baby would need to have a 5-day course, so that would be an extra 3 days. They said it wasn't coronavirus procedure, but that they were going to let me go see Alex just for a bit, because they thought it would be good for me mentally and emotionally. So he came and we met outside the ward. When she was 1 day old, they took her for a lumbar punch, and then twice a day she was taken to have antibiotics through her IV. Things got much better when I started asking for help. I asked for help with breastfeeding, and then looking back now I feel really lucky because we had such a sort of head start with our breastfeeding journey, because we had all these midwives and people on hand to come in and help us. Every day things got a little bit better. Each day I was gradually managing to eat my food warm more and drink my coffee warm more as I figured out what I was doing and figured out baby's little ways and got advice from the staff and stuff. There were a few staff members that I wouldn't have been able to do it without. They were just amazing, and I've wrapped up some little presents to post to them. Being in hospital after the birth was a real challenge mentally, but it also ended up being really good and really positive in a way. I have such like mixed memories and feelings of it. There were so many highs and so many lows, and I feel like this sounds really sappy, but I feel like I became a mum in more ways than one in the hospital. I gave birth there, but then I also went through those first few days of feeling like I had no idea what I was doing, to by the end of it feeling pretty confident actually, and like I'd got a good head start because of the, you know, amazing people we'd been around. Managed to go home on Wednesday and had another emotional reunion with Alex. It was quite beautiful actually. When we pulled up, my friend Jess took us home, and we pulled up in the car park, and this blossom or something had all been blown off the trees, and it was everywhere. It looked like it was sort of snowing with blossom, and just went up to Alex and hugged him and cried, and it was beautiful. It was a lovely moment. And now we have been home for a month, and it's great, and she's just the best little thing in my life. I don't think I've said her name the entire video, by the way, Lana. I don't know how to wrap all that up really. There were some major highs and some major lows. Some of the best, most memorable, worthwhile things you ever do in your life are really bloody difficult at the time. I loved my birth experience. I know it might not sound like it from a bunch of what I just said, but I loved it. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of our little story, especially the pushing bit. I know I've said it a minute ago, but I'd love to do that again. That was so cool. Taking care of a newborn was more difficult because it went on for longer. But we're getting a lot better at that now, aren't we? Thank you so much for watching this video. It's probably been very long. Well done you if you got to the end of it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye. And thank you for all your congratulations and lovely messages and things. Thanks. Bye. It's been a while since I've done a Patreon shout out, so I'm reading your names off my phone, and I'm gonna sing thank you to the tune of whatever this thing happens to play when I turn it on. I keep having to smack it because it's motion censored, but it only lasts for like a few seconds, and the motion sensor is not very strong at all, so I just keep punching it like so. Thank you, our patrons. Thank you, our patrons. Thank you, Emma Davis and Lauren Erica and Kat Nighting, Danielle Weatherall, Hannah Robinson, Jessica Bulldog and Willowy Wings. They are our patrons. Thank you, patrons. Thank you, patrons.